وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. As I prepared notes this morning, alhamdulillah, and going over some things that were said in the past, I realized that the content of what I've had responsibility to deliver here in this station of service has largely regarded community. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite wisdom and His infinite organization and how He sets out things, I don't consider this to be anything that's a mistake or out of proper place. We may think the day-to-day of us coming and going inside the masjid, coming and going in the classes, events, gatherings, kids' activities, all of these things, we may think these things are just our day-to-day. But ultimately, people's experience of what they walk away from in community, right? They're collections, they're, sort of conglomerates of all of these experiences. And so someone lives an entire childhood or entire teenagehood or entire adulthood being in a particular place with these people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to put them with. And after a time, they can look back and see, all right, how many times did I come across another person who has claimed La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that interaction was a positive one, or that interaction was an enriching one. Or they can look back and say, I had a sum of events, a sum of days, a sum of moments with these people, and for whatever reason, there were lapses in adab. For whatever reason, there were wrongs that were committed. And so, inshallah, because of these things, and because we have to be staunch stewards of these experiences on our behalf, inshallah, and if we are wrong, we hope that we are forgiving, inshallah, that we need to make sure that we're being observant of that, inshallah. So we got to talk about community, and particularly our community. There's always an attack, right, on communities that's trying to rebuild themselves up, right, and overcome some sort of obstacles. Allah says in the Quran, وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُم بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. He says, and be patient regarding a situation that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has experienced. He says, and be patient with those who call on their Lord day and night, seeking His countenance, seeking His face, and don't take your eye off them. The Mufassirun say, don't take your attention or your concern away from them. And this concern goes back to what I mentioned in the beginning about community, inshallah, and about all of us considering ourselves being stewards of the next person's experience, inshallah, in Jumu'ah. Umar radiallahu anhu was seen at the zenith of the day. He was seen at the zenith of the day, running back and forth. And so Ali didn't know who this man was in the distance, running back and forth, chasing camels. And so as he gets closer and closer, he sees this Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, and he is in a dead sweat, and he's trying to chase these camels. And while he goes up to him, he says, "Ya Umar, what are you doing?" He says, the camels that were distributed, they broke out and got away. I'm just trying to collect them. Now this is somebody, and he addresses him as Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, right? Ya, O leader of the believer, commander of the faithful. You could send anybody. A camel goes loose, he can just be like, "Yallah, boy, go get the camels." But he himself is taking it upon himself to do this duty of corralling these camels. And Ali radiallahu anhu says to him, he says, "You're setting a standard so high, I don't think anybody will be able to follow your footsteps." And what Umar says back to him is part of the large portion, inshallah, of your needy brother's address. He says, if a goat were to fall and drown in the river in the Euphrates, Umar would feel that he would be held to account for it. Just an animal all the way up north, right, way far, thousands of miles away from them. If it fell in the river, right, in the Muslim lands, I would feel responsible for it, let alone a human being, let alone a soul that has said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. So this should be, if this was a mission statement, just writing that for us, we will be clear, inshallah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this to the Rasul. He reveals this ayah to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sahbihi wa sallam after Uyayna ibn Hizn al-Fazari comes to visit him. So he comes, this is the chief of Medina, he comes to visit him. And while he's approaching the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he hasn't accepted Islam. He wants to see about what is this Allah you're talking about, azza wa jal. And so he goes, it gets closer, and he realizes the people that are with him, they're in the worst clothes, horrible clothes, right? They have rips and holes in them and all these sorts of things. As he gets closer, he starts to smell. Oh man, it's putrid. Awful smell that is emanating from these people who are posseed up, who are clicked up to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, you hang with your homeboys, hang with your homegirls. Imagine everybody is just, it's a stench. And so as he approaches, he decides this is not the party that I want to be a part of. And he says to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I really want to hear about this Allah. I really want to hear about it. But these people with you, like they're older, look at them. Right? Suri, right? They're older, look at them. They got a bad smell. I don't want to, you can tell me about them if we in another situation. Let's go into another place where they're not here. Among them, right? Among them, this is Ahl Sufa. These are the people at the step, the people who had nowhere else to go but be at the hand and service of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Don't sound like a bad deal. But for somebody who doesn't have a good eye, a good basira, it looks like a bad deal. And so the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he wants to compel this person he's one of the chiefs of Mecca. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say to him? He says, وَلَا تَعْدُ عَيْنَاكَ عَنْهُمْ تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ حَيَاةَ الدُّنْيا. He says, don't take your eye, don't take your concern off of these people. Among them, Salman al-Farisi, radiyallahu anhu. Among them, Abu Huraira, radiyallahu anhu. These are the people who he's saying this is stench. We know what their smell is like now in Jannah. We know what the affair of their smell is. But the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reminded, and we are reminded, inshallah, of those who are overlooked in community. Those who are overlooked in community. And it's very easy to point a discerning eye towards people who maybe not have economic means. Right? They might not have it. It may be very apparent. All right, but those who are overlooked, divorcees, overlooked. People who may be orphaned, right? Fatherless, overlooked. People who are just coming into this Islam, hearing all the Arabic in the world. As we, last night we talked about people coming, they know Allahu Akbar, and that's it. They've been getting about on Allahu Akbar. They walk in the head, and it's like, what's happening, right? And so people who may be in whatever circumstance that people begin to overlook them, inshallah, in this society, it can be compounded. Why is that? Because every person here, every human being, there's a constant attempt to make them a commodity. Every human being is a transaction. What is the thing they say in America? What have you done for me lately? And so if we're not careful, we've been raised to look at everything here by media, by TV, by all these things, to look at another soul as what have you done for me lately, or what can you do for me now? And so what we mean by overlooking people, is that you can ill perceive someone as not being able to do something for you, or you don't think they have the means or something. Maybe you don't think they have the knowledge. All right, let's go away from economics. You don't think they have the knowledge, and so you overlook them. We overlook them. You say, no, I really don't. I said, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Baligo anni lo ayah." Relay from me even one ayah. Right, so what does that mean? If you know one ayah of the Quran correctly, it's an amana on you to make sure that somebody doesn't know it, that they know it. But if someone were to come and say, I know one ayah, you don't know, and I want to tell it to you, they would say, no, bring me the person that's supposed to be, doing the teaching, inshallah. And so people get overlooked all the time. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrated that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, if anyone relieves a Muslim believer from one of the hardships of this worldly life, right? Someone who's struggling now in dunya, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would then relieve them of hardships in the dunya and the akhirah, inshallah. So what an opportunity sometimes skips over us because we're overlooking people we're coming and going back and forth every day. What an opportunity is escaping us every time we say to ourselves, well, this Muslim is struggling, this person is struggling, and that little American individualistic tick goes off in our brain, say that person can't do anything for me. I'll let them figure it out on their own. And so this ummah, this jama'ah, this religion is not a go-at-it-alone religion. So you need other people. Believe me, as introverted as I am, I would have tried it already. I'd have tried to just be dolo somewhere on an island by myself. But it doesn't work like that. Can't work like that. And so when people are having hardships, when people are feeling the dunya constrict them, the Muslim should be the first person to make themselves available, inshallah, to alleviate that pain. Abu Hurairah, again, this is a person of the step that this man was saying he didn't want that stench around. He says that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that many people with disheveled hair, right? They clearly do not have the means or the capabilities to do basic grooming of themselves. Very basic grooming of themselves. Are driven away from doors, right? They come knock on the door. They come knock on the car door, right? Tap on the window. You know, some folks, they panhandle, they be aggressive. They come knock on your door and be like, hey, give me some money. And they're driven away, right? You're offended. Get up, man. Go ahead somewhere, man. And he says that if they were to swear, right? Lo aqsimu ala Allah, if they were to swear, right, by Allah, swear on Allah, he would definitely fulfill that. That if they had a true need, right, that if they were to swear by Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not have a delay in fulfilling that. But if our eyes, right, in this weak mind, these feeble minds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to have, if they are not crafted and constantly being oriented to be able to truly see who people are or the souls that people are, we'll skip over these things. We're reminded of the riwayah, the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he calls out to Angel Jibril alayhi salam and he says, oh Jibril, I love so-and-so. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be amongst those so-and-sos. And he says, yeah, Jibril, so you love him or her. And Angel Jibril begins loving him or her. And then Angel Jibril then calls out to the inhabitants of the heavens, the entire heavens. And he says, I love so-and-so. Now you all love so-and-so. Now on earth, we have no idea, inshallah, we may have a perception, we have no idea who those so-and-sos are. No recollection of who they are. So it will behoove us to treat everybody like that they're so-and-so. What if we treated everyone like the person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is exclaiming to the Ruhul Qudus, Jibreel alayhi salam, and the rest of the inhabitants and the malaika in the akhirah, in the ghaib, in the heavens? What if we treated everybody like that? Instead of just bodily envelopes we can just reap something from. Lastly, when we say overlook, one of the most overlooked populations within our communities are those who are currently in prison, or just coming out in prison. Maybe they're in a halfway house. Wherever they may be, they're overlooked. Most of the time they ship somewhere out in a rural area to provide an economy for those people out there. And they're taken out of sight. And so one can say, you know, what is the issue? How could people be so up in arms about someone being executed. This is America. We execute people every day. This is because in a situation where Muslims have been here practicing Islam for so long, how could these things go unheard of? How could it be a month to go until our brother, rahimahullah, Imam Marcellus Williams, month to go, 2 months to go, and people are just finding out about how he's being jailed corruptly. And that's because people, again, overlook. If they went to prison, and brothers who came home from prison, they tell you right then and there. The minute they say felon, or they write felon, or they ask, brother, where you been at, or whatever, and they say prison, there are people in the community who immediately the button goes off. Doop. They checked out of the conversation. Because your having been to prison has to mean that you are of some criminal element within our community. Not knowing, especially, for black brothers and sisters, right? You got this skin tone, you're going to do a whole lot of ducking and dodging to stay away from that law. Just randomly, right, to stay away from that law. Likewise, even people who are in rural America, go to, like you say, our Caucasian brothers and sisters, right, who are in places where they themselves also have a connection where they're being imprisoned, right, unjustly. These are things that people died for in our movements, making these particular connections. That we have people within our communities, within this country, within these zip codes that are completely overlooked, completely abandoned. Likewise, when people come home, we have to ask ourselves whether these masajid, do they have open arms and open doors and open hearts and open minds readily available for people to be able to plant their feet on the ground again and try to reshape their life and try to get themselves together? Or are we like Uyayna, who would approach and say, you know what, now I really like this Islam, but those people, cast them off. I don't want them around. I feel unsafe when they're around. Malcolm X, rahimahullah, he said, I served a total of 7 years in prison. Now, when I try to separate that first year, plus the one I spent at Charlestown, it runs all together in the memory of nutmeg and other semi-drugs, of cursing guards, throwing things out my cell, balking in the lines, dropping my tray in the dining hall, refusing to answer my number, claiming I forgot it, and things like that. I preferred the solitary that this behavior brought me. I would pace for hours like a caged leopard, viciously cursing aloud to myself. And my favorite targets were the Bible and God. But there was a legal limit to how much one could be kept in solitary. Eventually, the men in the cell block had a name for me, Satan, because of my anti-religious attitude. And so this is an excerpt from what? Maulana Malcolm X, talking about his time in prison. And how at one time we know him as like this big wali, this big opener of Islam in these lands, but he was once called Satan. He was once amongst the population that's still living now that people don't even have a thought about. Just this morning, notice of an in-law in my family that my family said I've only known him to be in jail. I don't have a recollection of that person outside. And so likewise, Malcolm X, who we laud and applaud, we send, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time for forgiveness for him, was once pacing like a leopard in his cage. Once considered these downtrodden, these people that should be cast off and overlooked. And how much do we benefit from him? And how much do we benefit from them? And the point I'm making is that Imam Marcellus, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, decided to call him back, to return him back. But what if brothers and sisters who are coming from those situations walked into these doors and felt like this is the exact place I needed to be after having that experience? That everything I was thinking about accomplishing while I was in prison, many of them unjustly, that I can get done what I need to get done with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this place, and I can get done what I need to get done with repairing my relationships in this place, and there have been a community that has opened hearts for me. What a transformation could be made in people. And we will, inshallah, be able to benefit from imams like Imam Marcellus Williams, inshallah. Allah yarhamahu. Lastly, this marks the birthday of Imam Jamil Alameen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him a faraj, an opening, and to free him, inshallah. Who, to my recollection, I've only known of him to be in prison. As a young boy, I only known of him to be in prison. To be somebody on the Free Him t-shirt in the 90s. And so while we have imams dying in prison unjustly, we have imams still. He's going to be 81 years old. Not too much more skin in the game of planting the flag of Islam here in this particular country, in Dar al-Kufr, then you can get more than him. Yet alone, he's still behind bars, still overlooked, still over there. All right, his situation is over there. We should consider his situation to be home, part and parcel of who we are. Part and parcel of who we are. He has an appeal, inshallah, that's going to be going in for him. Look, the appeal is not for him to be free. The appeal is not for him to be free. The appeal is for him to be able to recite his story in a documentary. Just for him to tell his story, not get home. There are many imams like this. There are many people like this, inshallah. A marker of our progress here in this country, here in the city, wherever we are at, should be whether or not we've made a place people can come back to, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a faraj for these people, for freedom, for fath, for opening, inshallah, and nasr min Allah, inshallah, and this aid that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do that. And while they're there, inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to free them as He freed Imam Marcellus. Right? As He freed them. A true freedom, what is that? Realizing that this dunya is the real prison. So recognizing that this dunya is the real prison, they just made a little man-made one that they think they have dominion over. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, who has dominion today? Who has dominion today? And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we get anything, and we get Jannah taken care of, inshallah, we at least get to see the faces of the tyrants and the oppressors and all those who thought they had mulk in this world when He asked that question. Those who jailed scores, those who imprisoned families constantly, generation after generation. When Allah asked that question, who has dominion today? We at least get a little front row seat to it to see their faces go gray. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Ya ibadallah, inni usikum wa ya bitaqullah. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد نورك الساري ومددك الجاري واجمعني بكل أتباري وعلي وصحبه يا نور يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمؤمنات ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملت على الذين من قبلنا ربنا وتحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all the believing men and women folk, to forgive all the submitting women folk. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to repair hearts, to repair relationships. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that each one of these doors that claim to have La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that there be a home for hearts, a home for the downtrodden, home for those who are broken in the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fortifies our homes, cures our ailments, cures our illnesses, and protects the elderly and the children among us and the women folk and all those who are in need of aid, inshallah. Inna Allah ya'mur bil adli wa ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkar wa baghi ya'idhukum la'allakum tadhakkarun wa la dhikrullahi akbar wallahu ya'lamu ma taf'alun. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we do.